The train lurched, and Lila's heart raced as she stood on the platform, facing a crowd of expectant faces. Her artwork stood unveiled behind her, but all eyes were on her now. The microphone trembled in her hand. "Say something, Lila," Mia whispered, giving her shoulder a gentle squeeze. "They're all here for you." Sam nodded encouragingly from the front row, his familiar crooked smile steadying her. These were strangers just days ago, yet now they looked at her with such warmth it made her throat tighten. I. Lila's voice cracked, the weight of her journey pressing down on her chest. She'd never spoken to a crowd before, had spent years disappearing into corners and shadows. Yet here she stood, somehow the center of everything. A missed train stop had led to this moment of terrifying vulnerability. How had everything changed so quickly? But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to the day everything changed. Lila Matthews had perfected the art of invisibility. In lecture halls, she chose seats in the back corner where professors' gazes rarely wandered. During group projects, she nodded along with others' ideas, offering her own in whispers that were easily overlooked. Her college existence was a carefully constructed routine: classes, library, dorm, repeat. Safe, predictable, lonely. On that Tuesday afternoon, Lila sat on the 3:40 train as she did every week, her psychology textbook open but unread. Rain streaked the windows, blurring the familiar landscape into watercolor smudges. She was sketching absent-mindedly in her notebook, something she'd never show anyone, when the memory of her morning class discussion on social anxiety pulled her deep into thought. Professor Harmon had called on her unexpectedly. "Ms. Matthews, what's your take on exposure therapy for social phobias?" The question had hung in the air while 27 pairs of eyes turned toward her. Her mouth had gone dry, her voice emerging as barely a whisper. "I think it depends on the individual's readiness for change." The professor had nodded thoughtfully before moving on, but Lila had felt the hot flush of embarrassment linger on her cheeks for hours afterward. Lost in this memory, the gentle sway of the train lulled her into a daze. It wasn't until the automated announcement system called out, "Final stop, Millfield," that Lila's head snapped up. Her eyes widened in panic as she realized she'd missed her stop, Greenwood, 3 stations ago. No, she muttered, gathering her belongings with trembling hands. The doors slid open, and she stumbled onto an unfamiliar platform as the sky darkened with the threat of heavier rain. The station was small but charming, with hanging flower baskets and a vintage clock tower. Unlike the sterile efficiency of her usual stop, this place had character: weathered brick walls covered with colorful community announcements and art posters. Checking the schedule board, Lila's stomach sank. The next train back wouldn't arrive for 3 hours due to maintenance on the line. She bit her lip, clutching her bag tighter as she contemplated what to do. The rational choice was to wait, but the station had no indoor waiting area, and the rain was intensifying. As droplets began to fall more heavily, Lila made an impulsive decision. She'd explore the town until the next train. Just a quick walk, something she'd never normally do. Stepping out of the station, she was immediately struck by the vibrancy of Millfield. Unlike the corporate uniformity of her college town, this place pulsed with individuality. Storefronts painted in bold colors lined the main street, and people strolled unhurriedly, stopping to chat with one another. The rain drove Lila toward a cafe with a steamed-up window and a sign that read "Mia's Place" in swirling script. The bell above the door announced her entrance, and warmth enveloped her immediately, both from the temperature and the atmosphere. The walls were adorned with local artwork, and mismatched furniture created cozy nooks throughout the space. "You look like you could use something warm," called a voice from behind the counter. A woman with silver-streaked black hair and laugh lines around her eyes approached, wiping her hands on her apron. "First time in Millfield?" Lila nodded, fighting her instinct to mumble and look away. "I missed my stop," she admitted. The woman's smile widened. Well, some would call that fate. I'm Mia. This is my place, obviously not very creative with the name. She chuckled. What can I get you? Just a tea, please. I'm waiting for the next train. 3 hours, right? The Tuesday maintenance schedule is a pain. Mia waved her toward a corner table by the window. Sit. First cups on the house for stranded travelers. Lila settled into the chair, surprised by Mia's easy kindness. The cafe had a scattered collection of patrons, an elderly couple sharing a scone, a woman typing furiously on a laptop, and a man with paint-splattered jeans sketching in a notebook. Mia returned with a steaming mug and a slice of lemon cake. I didn't order, Lila started. Trust me, you need this cake. It has restorative properties for lost souls. Mia winked and slid into the chair opposite. So, where were you headed before fate intervened? Back to Westlake College. I'm a junior there, studying psychology, though sometimes I wonder if I chose it to understand myself or others. The words slipped out before Lila could stop them, more honest than she'd been with anyone in months. Mia nodded thoughtfully. The best psychologists do both, I imagine. She glanced at Lila's notebook, which had fallen open to reveal her sketches. You're an artist. Lila quickly closed the notebook. No, just doodles. Those weren't doodles, honey. That was art. Mia stood as the bell rang again. Enjoy your accidental detour. Sometimes the universe knows what we need better than we do. As Mia greeted the new customers, the man with paint-splattered jeans approached Lila's table. Sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't help overhearing. Are you interested in art? Lila clutched her notebook tighter. Not really. I just sketch sometimes. He smiled, revealing a chipped front tooth that somehow added to his charm. I'm Sam, local artist, though that sounds pretentious. I teach at the community center too. He gestured to her notebook. Mind if I see? Every instinct told Lila to refuse, to protect the private thoughts she expressed through her drawings. But something about Sam's open expression and the strange circumstances of being in this unfamiliar town made her hesitate. Slowly, she opened her notebook to a sketch of a girl surrounded by shadows with light filtering through cracks. Sam studied it silently, his expression serious. This is powerful, he said finally. You have a real talent for expressing emotion through imagery. Lila felt her cheeks warm. It's nothing special. That's where you're wrong. Sam pulled out a flyer from his pocket and placed it on the table. We're having an exhibition next week celebrating new voices. The theme is hidden depths. Your work would fit perfectly. Lila stared at the flyer, a flutter of something unfamiliar, excitement, stirring in her chest. I'm not from here. I'll be gone in 3 hours. Sam shrugged. Or you could stay. The universe doesn't send talents like yours to random towns without reason. He scribbled something on the flyer. My number? Think about it. The submission deadline is in 2 days. As he walked away, Lila felt a strange pull, a desire to consider his invitation seriously. She'd never shown her art to anyone before today, let alone submitted it for public display. The thought was terrifying. Yet as she sipped her tea and watched the town through the rain-streaked window, she wondered what it would be like to be seen, truly seen, through her art. When the rain subsided, Lila found herself wandering through Millfield instead of returning to the station. The town had an undeniable charm, a community garden bursting with vegetables and flowers, a bookstore with reading nooks and a resident cat, an old theater showing classic films. At the community center, a banner announced the upcoming exhibition. Through the windows, Lila could see people working on various art pieces, laughing and collaborating. She stood watching, a lump forming in her throat at the easy camaraderie she observed. Thinking of joining us? A voice startled her. Sam stood beside her, carrying art supplies. I should be getting back to the station, Lila said automatically. Should be, or wanna be? Sam challenged gently. Look, I know it's crazy to suggest staying in a town you stumbled into by accident. But sometimes the best things in life are unplanned. Lila hesitated. I have classes tomorrow. Email exists, even in small towns, Sam grinned. The Millfield Inn has reasonable rates, and I happen to know Mia rents out a room above her cafe sometimes. The responsible choice was clear: return to her routine, her safe invisibility. Yet standing there, watching creativity flow freely among strangers who supported each other, Lila felt a yearning she couldn't ignore. I don't have any supplies, she said weakly. Sam's face lit up, recognizing her wavering resolve. That I can definitely help with. That evening, Lila found herself in Mia's spare room, surrounded by art supplies Sam had lent her, sending an email to her professors about a family emergency. It wasn't entirely untrue. This felt like an emergency of self, a confrontation with the person she'd been hiding. Over the next day, Lila explored Millfield, sketching in parks and cafes. People approached her, curious and friendly. Each conversation was a small victory over her shyness. When she mentioned the exhibition, locals expressed genuine interest in seeing her work. You should do it, encouraged an elderly woman who had watched Lila sketch the town square. Art is meant to be shared. But as the submission deadline approached, doubt crept in. At the community center, Lila observed other artists preparing their pieces, accomplished, confident creators with polished techniques. I don't belong here, she confessed to Mia that evening, tears threatening. Everyone else is so talented, so sure of themselves. I'm just a girl who missed her train stop. Mia sat beside her on the cafe's back steps. You know what I see when I look at your sketches? Truth. Raw, unfiltered emotion. That's rarer than technical skill. But what if people don't like it? What if they laugh? Then you'll know you had the courage to be vulnerable. That's more than most people ever achieve. Mia squeezed her hand. The question isn't whether you're good enough for them. It's whether you're brave enough for yourself. That night, Lila couldn't sleep. She stared at her half-finished piece, a painting of a girl stepping off a train into a world of color. At 3 a.m., she made her decision. She would return to college, to safety. This detour had been a pleasant dream, but not her reality. She packed her bag, leaving a thank you note for Mia. But as she placed her notebook inside, it fell open to her sketches. Sam's words echoed, "The universe doesn't send talents like yours to random towns without reason." What if he was right? What if this wasn't a detour but a destination she'd been meant to find? Dawn found Lila still awake, her painting transformed. The girl stepping off the train now reached toward outstretched hands, her face a mixture of fear and hope. Behind her, the train receded into shadows. Ahead, a community waited in vibrant color. When Mia found her asleep at the table, paintbrush still in hand, she covered her with a blanket and smiled at the finished piece. The day of the submission, Lila's hands trembled as she carried her painting to the community center. Artists bustled around, arranging their work. Some nodded at her, others offered encouraging smiles. You came, Sam said, appearing beside her. His genuine delight bolstered her courage. I'm terrified, she admitted. Good. Art without fear is just decoration. He helped her find a space for her painting. The exhibition opens tomorrow. The whole town will be here. The thought made Lila's stomach clench. Maybe I should just leave it and go back to school. Sam studied her face. You could. But I think you'd be running from something important. That night, Lila barely slept, alternating between exhilaration and panic. By morning, she'd decided to attend the exhibition opening but remain anonymous, observing from the sidelines as she always did. But when she arrived at the community center, her plan crumbled. Her painting had been placed in a prominent position, and beside it, a card with her name and title, The Misstop by Lila Matthews. People gathered around it, discussing it with animation. Lila froze, heart pounding, ready to flee. There she is, Mia's voice called out. The artist herself. Faces turned toward her. Lila felt the familiar paralysis of being seen, of being the center of attention. But then something unexpected happened. An older woman approached her with tears in her eyes. "Your painting, it's exactly how I felt when I first moved here after my husband died." Terrified but hopeful. A teenage boy added, "I've never told anyone, but that's how school feels every day for me." One by one, people shared how her art had touched them, how it reflected their own experiences of fear and belonging. Lila's shyness didn't disappear, but it receded as she realized her vulnerability had created connection, not rejection. The exhibition became a turning point. Lila's paintings sold to a local gallery owner who asked if she had more work. Community members invited her to their homes, their events. For the first time, her quietness was seen not as a flaw but as thoughtfulness. 3 weeks later, Lila stood on the train platform again, but this time facing a crowd gathered for the town's first Art in Public Spaces initiative, a project she'd helped organize. Her mural design had been selected to transform the station where she'd accidentally arrived. "Say something, Lila," Mia whispered, giving her shoulder a gentle squeeze. "They're all here for you." Sam nodded encouragingly from the front row, his familiar crooked smile steadying her. These were strangers just weeks ago, yet now they looked at her with such warmth it made her throat tighten. Taking a deep breath, Lila raised the microphone. "A month ago, I missed my stop and ended up here by accident." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "I was lost, but what I found was myself. This mural represents all of us, how we can be in transit between who we are and who we might become." As applause erupted, Lila felt the final pieces of her old self falling away. She had withdrawn her enrollment from Westlake College that morning, accepting instead a scholarship to study art therapy at Millfield Community College while working part-time at Mia's Cafe. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Sam approached her. "So, how does it feel to be the town's newest artistic voice?" Lila smiled, no longer hiding behind her hair. "Terrifying. Wonderful. Right. You know," he said, "most people spend their whole lives waiting for the perfect moment to change. You missed your stop and found your way." Lila looked around at the town that had embraced her, at the people who had seen value in her when she couldn't see it herself. "I think sometimes we have to get lost to find where we truly belong." As the sun set over Millfield, Lila Matthews, no longer the shy girl who disappeared into corners, walked toward her new home, surrounded by a community that had taught her the courage to be seen. Her missed train stop had become the most important arrival of her life.